You're very welcome back. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I see performance being engineered, not being motivated. That's important for me. Not everyone may view things the same way, but I do believe that performance doesn't come from that, let's do it for the GIP stuff, overcoming adversity, looking up and realizing you have to shoot. Um, that particularly exceptional shot to actually win. I don't believe that. I believe it's engineered. I believe it's a process. My reasoning behind it in shooting, particularly, a qualifier for us is probably 1 hour 15 for 60 shots. You can be motivated for one, you can be motivated for 5, 10, maybe even. But what happens is when emotion starts to come in, the motivation starts to waver. Um, so I do believe the performance it's created by not by the motivation. It's I suppose here's the thing too on a larger scale. It's a natural outcome of alignment and repeating decisions. Hence the shooting process works so well. I think that freedom begins when you stop outsourcing your decisions as well on a larger scale, not just on a shooting scale. I think that most people look for the tactics. You know, everyone's looking for in shooting, for example. I've no doubt people will wander across my channel here and website even. Everyone's looking for the next thing, not even the next thing, how someone else can help me get what I want to achieve, for example. Um, I would say that if you own your own process, look at your own process, you'll achieve more in a shorter space of time than if you're trying to use someone else's. So, for example, in shooting, particularly in our classification in SH2, I can see on a shooting line on video footage there's 8 positions. Out of that, there's probably 5 of those, if not anywhere between 5 and 8, we'll say, because sometimes there are people who can walk that actually sit on a stool in our category, but generally we're all in wheelchairs. I can tell you that the wheelchair is only an indicator, but it's not the commonality, if you want. I don't think there are any two people sitting in a wheelchair on a firing line actually share the same symptoms and the same ability levels. So no point in me taking from somebody, bar the fundamentals of them sitting in a chair and observing certain things. But it has to be down to me. It has to be down to my process that I engineer. And similarly, that's how I conduct myself in life. I'm not into following others. I have my own way. It's aligned with my values. I've delivered projects across the globe in similar fashion. I'm not looking for the next greatest way to do things. I'm comfortable that I've built a process that works for me, works for employers, works for shooting, and I own it. And I own all the outcomes too, positive and negative. Um, I think people are waiting for that, oh, I'll start that next week. Why? Because everything will align. That's the funny one. It's like, even in shooting, oh, I get serious about my training now once I hit a certain number, or I'll get serious now once I get it used to be a new pair of runners. Oh, I'll go out and run regularly then, or I don't know, there's something coming up, and if once that's passed, then I can give this the focus I need. They're waiting for validation, maybe from others, from themselves even, that it's okay to do something because they're not sure that it's the right thing. But if it's aligned with your values, um, I think it's going to work out perfectly. They're nearly waiting for certainty, you know. Um, in shooting, you look down the sight when everything is lined up. That's the time to take the shot. But if you've missed a step in there somewhere, you're taking a shot based on false information. And the motivation thing, I tend to think, it's something else is going to come in the way of getting motivated, whether it's exercise or dieting or moving to a different job. All these different things. It's waiting for the right time. And actually, now is the right time. That's what I would say. But you need to own it. You own the decision, you own the outcome. I think for me anyway, the day I decided to take that it was that my decisions are mine and I'm free to make them once I'm comfortable with the consequences, I don't make bad decisions. And it freed me from trying to, I suppose, follow others who were not making decisions, but I was allowing them make decisions. So, for example, in projects, I would have gone along to a degree with a general consensus in delivering projects until something, for example, would have triggered inside me, similar to a shot, by the way. I know that I know I've fired a bad shot because I can feel it. Equally, I know I've shot a good shot because I can feel it. It's that little compass thing inside. When I've gone along with projects that I wasn't in control of, I was a person who took part in the project, for example, rather than leading projects. I found the challenges where I would feel that inside that it wasn't aligned with what I believed, and it created incongruence or created a conflict. I knew it, but I had to go along with it. Sometimes you have to go along with management decisions. What I would say, by the way, is if going along becomes the norm, find your new norm. Because the reality is, if you're constantly going against your internal compass, I think there's a good chance that yeah, you'll eventually start feeling it in other ways, like high blood pressure or tension or really not enjoying things or whatever. And as in shooting, when I get my process lined up, my shot process I execute, if I'm continuously shooting and going, well, that didn't feel right, well, I know it didn't feel right at a certain stage, so why did I take the shot? And in shooting, you get an instant result. In certain projects, in certain businesses, in certain work environments, you don't get that immediate outcome. But yeah, I'd say when you're free to decide on how you want to do things based on internal compass, I think you're in a really good place. Motivation versus ownership is a topic that I think of. They're slightly different. Well, they're greatly different, but they're by the way they're owned by you. Um, you can allow one or the other take over how you go. Um, Emotion. When you allow emotion come in, it's the motivation. You need something to make you feel that you're doing the right thing. Um, you're allowing external factors in a motivation scenario. You know, that thing of, oh, I looked up and I was on shot 59 and I motivated myself to go on shot 60 and overcome things. Well, I can tell you 9 times out of 10, you're not getting that because it's built on nothing other than everything else needs to align perfectly now rather than having a process. Um, it's hard, if not impossible, to sustain something that's built on motivation. Why? So if I give you a direct example, we get up in the gym we get up on January 1st every year. We've got the best intentions. We're going to do a whole lot of things. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to become fitter. That's based on an emotional outcome, probably backed up by the fact that you've had a Christmas where you've indulged and enjoyed yourself. Um, and with the best intentions, the motivation gets you started. But if motivation is the only thing that continues, that's why even the stats back it up. Month one, gym memberships in January. Month two, they're down. Month three, they're down again. Month four, they're down. Month five, there's nobody. Well, I won't say nobody. There are people who don't go anymore because something else came along. It could be week two into January. Oh, I'm making a change. I'm going to a different job. All valid, by the way. Not saying you shouldn't. What I am saying is these are indicators of motivators, and you can't repeat them. There's no consistency in it. Another motivation will take over in another week based on your situation at that time. And there's no one saying you're wrong to do things, but what I would say is when you own it and you put discipline around it, discipline is what keeps you going to the gym month two, month three, month four, month five, month six. Why? Because the outcome is what you want to achieve, not the instant, I'm going to do the right thing here. Motivation is not really built on a foundation of anything. It's based on emotion, really, and it can't be sustained. It can start something, but then I believe ownership and discipline need to come in. The discipline and the ownership, regardless of circumstance, you will get up. Why? Because you own the outcome. Um, it comes from an internal alignment. It's if it's something that you feel natural about. So if you feel natural about going to the gym, you're going to go to the gym. If it's not something that you feel naturally aligned with, it's not going to last, and it's going to be a stick to beat yourself with. So you either decide I'm not doing it, or you change the internal compass so it aligns with that. When you own it as well, you accept the consequences. Why? Because consequences are consequences. There's consequences to right decisions as the same as there are consequences to wrong decisions. And some of the hardest outcomes I've ever had were based on making the right decision. It doesn't mean they weren't the right thing to do. It just means the consequences were tough. And when you own it as well with the alignment, it's easier, not easy, it's easier to create a sustainable performance. In shooting, I own every aspect of that shot. The rifle doesn't lie. It's nearly like a lie detector. If it doesn't come out where it should come out, where if the bullet doesn't land where it should land, then I've done something, and I need to own that. So it's a reward system for me, and it rewards me based on how well I execute my process. And with ownership, it's based on a choice, and you can do it now or not. What I'd say is that pressure doesn't create truth; it reveals it. It's yeah, it either shines a light on alignment or misalignment. Um, it'll shine a light on commitment or performed commitment. By that I mean, if you look at certain people over a period of time, they're either always that way or they're not. There are situations where people put on a performance, you know. Um, it's a challenge. Business environments, sometimes people have to perform in a certain way. It's not naturally aligned. Some people aren't great. For example, you've seen people who don't do presentations particularly well, fantastic in terms of the information behind the presentation, but they don't do presentations. And the reality is that's because they're not a performer. And it's not a negative, it's actually quite a strong thing. It's when you see someone who doesn't have the information and they're putting on this performance to make people believe. That doesn't really work. Um, I could show you shots on, for example, I can run you videos of me shooting the perfect shot. Now, under pressure, does that perfect shot continue over 60 shots, or does it die halfway through? That's when the pressure comes in. It reveals just how strong the process is. Um, it'll also shine a light on ownership or outsourced responsibility, like I call it. You've been in meetings where people throw people under the bus. Why? Because they're not owning their part in the whole thing. It's someone else that screwed up. When in fact, part of a team wins or a team loses. I'm not a big fan of someone let us down in the team. I don't believe anyone loses by goals, for example, in a soccer match. I believe you lost because you didn't win or score goals on the other side. Situations like that are far, far too easy to pick on. Yeah, I'm responsible in shooting. I'm responsible for the shot. I'm responsible for disseminating the information that's given to me by a coach and implementing it as part of the process. It's not if the coach gives me a piece of information, I own enough of my system to question whether or not it is or isn't something that's valid, and we'll try it out. But I'm the one pulling the trigger. There's nowhere to hide behind that. Similarly, in projects, I'm part of the team, but I'm leading it in a certain pathway. And I can make the changes as we go along to make sure we continue aligned on, or I can allow it wander off into land that delivers nothing, for example. We don't meet the project, so I own that part of it. I'd say alignment definitely reduces friction. When you're internally aligned, it's a lot easier to do things on the tough days as well as the easy days. Um, over time and under pressure, alignment is what actually, I mean, the rifle's a perfect example. If I'm aligned, it removes noise. When I'm not aligned, I introduce noise. So for example, if my rifle's perfectly balanced and I'm perfectly aligned with what we call natural point of aim, there's little or no noise in that rifle. And if you put a laser tracker on it, a SCAT system as we call it, it'll trace the movement of the barrel. That'll tell you whether you're aligned or not. That's pretty much the easiest example to understand when you introduce noise into the rifle. It's not aligned anymore, and the outcome is a very poor shot. Similarly, if you're in a project, if it's not aligned with your goals, values, if you're doing work within projects that are not aligned with the outcome, creates friction. I think that there's three options really open to you when you're faced with a challenge. Either you accept it and go, this is okay, or you change, because the outcome is the outcome. So you change whatever you need to do, or you put up with it and suffer. But you can't moan about it then in effect. So either when you realize you need to do something, you get to do it or not do it, but you don't get to not do it and moan about the outcome still being the same. So some people would say everyone wants change, but not everyone wants to change. This is why in work, in life, in shooting, I can either accept I'm a bad shot or I can accept I'm doing something wrong, but I can't moan about the fact that I'm still doing something wrong when I didn't decide to do something about it. That's the reality. When you know there's a problem, you get to choose to ignore it or do something about it. But you can't complain about the outcome if you choose to ignore it. And I can tell you it's coming back again to visit. And by the way, doing nothing is still a choice. And you own the outcome of that choice. So I think that's key as well. I'd say when the most dangerous moment for a person is when they start to try figure out what other people want them to be, and then they pretend to be that, because you will see it if you look with your ears and your eyes. That'll sound odd, but when you look at somebody over a period of time, eventually you'll see that there's an incongruent effect there. They're being something that they're not. We all show it when we're trying to be something we're not. So what I'd say is pick your internal compass, find out where it's pointing, and align everything you do in life with that compass. And if that compass needs to move in a different direction, align everything so that that compass is pointing where it needs to be pointing. Otherwise, it looks like a compass in the Bermuda Triangle just going around in a circle. Thank you.